get a first crack at setting up businesses rather than multi-state operators coming in to swoop up the market.
So when you look at this legislation, when people look at it, this isn't about this gets passed and the next thing you know, everybody's selling weed on a street corner. This is about getting set up for when the federal government does X, we can do Y. Is there the anticipation that you're going to be waiting a very long time? And how do you speak to those advocates of marijuana being legal that, wait, Kentucky can do this, but we can't? Kentucky can do it?
Well, I would like to point out that Kentucky did it by executive order, and I'm never a fan of doing things by executive order. I think this is something that the people's representatives need to hear and discuss and really get into the meat of this policy issue. And so that's what I would say in regard to what Kentucky did. However, I think we got to be realistic about where we're at in the state. And as you stated in the intro, Governor Holcomb has said that he won't sign a bill that fully legalizes until the federal government changes their mind on the issue. Now, I don't think we'll be waiting very long. And in fact, Tony, I'm very surprised that we're even in this position now. The Democrats had control of the White House and the House of Representatives and the Senate for 2 years, and I'm just quite frankly shocked that they didn't do this. And they left an opening for Republicans like me to come in and say, this is a policy that we should be championing, and that's what I'm doing.
Talking to Representative Jake Teshka of the 7th District, talking about his legislation that he's got out there. This is House Bill 1039. I asked how it's not House Bill 420. Honestly, sir, it boggles the mind. And I appreciate you being with us. You talk about it being executive order in Kentucky, and I think that is a solid point, but it doesn't explain Illinois, nor Michigan, nor Wisconsin, nor Ohio, where these things are legal. Talk to me about who you're hearing from about the desire for legalization here, and how do you counter the argument that you're talking about legalizing what is very obviously, in people's minds, a gateway drug?
Yeah, so what I would say to that is a couple of points here that you made. On the first part, Michigan and Illinois, both of those states did this process. Of course, Illinois is a little bit different politically than we are. Michigan just flipped their House and Senate. They did theirs by ballot measure. Of course, we don't have those here in the state of Indiana. But what I think is important to note, right, is there's this Bowen study out of Ball State, this survey that just recently came out, showing that only 15% of Hoosiers are okay with the status quo of prohibition in the state. So 56% in that survey said they were in favor of full adult use legalization of cannabis, and another 26% said that they would be in favor of legalization for medical use. And so we've got 85% of Hoosiers agreeing on an issue, and that's something that in today's divisive political culture is unheard of. And so one of the things I would say is why this hasn't happened yet is, it's one thing to answer a question on a survey. It's a totally another thing to make a phone call to your legislator and push for this policy. And until it's something that really affects you, right, until you've got your young child sitting, in a jail cell for simple possession, or until, like my constituent who wrote in just before Christmas, said, hey, I've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I've tried all of these drugs, 40 rounds of radiation, and they've got me on all of these things. I've had surgery. And he said to me, I would eat cow dung if it would help me live longer. He said, I know it's a long shot, but my life is all I have to lose. And it's for folks like that I'm pushing for this policy. In terms of it being a gateway drug, I think that we're seeing more and more, as more data comes out from some of these states that have regulated their markets. In fact, a recent study showed that states that have regulated market have an increased age of first cannabis use. In other words, kids aren't using it as much. And just think about it, Tony. When you were younger, what was easier for you to get, a bottle of booze or a joint, right? And I think a lot of times it's the illegal substance that's easier for you to get because it's not a regulated substance, right? And so it's tougher for minors to get that. And we're seeing more and more data come out that shows that regulated markets not only do not have an increased use among youth in terms of a gateway or whatever you might call it. In fact, it has the opposite effect.
I can attest to the fact that it would have been easier for me to find a joint than a bottle of beer.
Not that you were looking.
When I was a kid, talking to Representative Jake Teshka of the 7th District, State Representative Jake Teshka, talking about the legalization of marijuana. You brought up the Democrats, who last session, they made a giant deal about this as if they were leading the charge. And certainly we know that Representative Jim Lucas has been talking about this subject for a while. And it seems that the strategy of the Indiana Democrats was attack Republicans for not being more on board with this, as opposed to finding people that you could work with. Do you have Democrats you're working with on this subject? Will we see Democrats at this big rally that's taking place at the State House at 11 o'clock